evening. Welcome to our program, Women to Women. I'm Carol Paz, your hostess for tonight, and we have a very special lady with her husband during the second half that are going to demonstrate some techniques, unique techniques for all of our safety concerns. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsors for this first half, Villa Basque Cafe, home of Pete's famous Basque delicious chorizo, right here in Carson City, as well as Carpa Nevada LLC, importer of fine extra virgin olive oils, as well as international health teas and aged balsamic vinegar. So I'd like to turn to Debra May, our guest for tonight. Debra, it's so nice to have you with us.
Thanks for inviting us.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Debra, you and your husband, Jeff, are definitely a very unique couple, and we're privileged to have you as a team here. But as a woman, okay, and for our Women to Women viewing audience, I'd like to understand some things about your background, first of all. So can you tell us, where did you grow up, and how did this interest in guns develop?
I grew up mostly in California.
Okay.
However, I've always kind of been the independent soul in my home, where I'm more tomboyish and like things that were a little more rugged and physical.
Okay.
And just over time, just naturally gravitated towards guns. I had some family members who actually would shoot. My dad had a few rifles, but not really a lot of shooting there. So it was mostly family, and I just grew up with a natural curiosity about it, and I kind of liked everything that makes noise and has impact, and that kind of just stuck with me.
Now, are you the only child in the family?
No, there are four of us.
Four of us. Are you the youngest, the oldest?
I'm the middle.
You're in the middle.
Course.
All right. And that's a very unique position, as I call it, the pecking order, because you look toward your older siblings as guides, as sometimes mentors, and as informants, okay, about what's going on really in the family, all right? And then your younger ones, did you feel a sense of responsibility toward them in particular?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. My sister is 8 years younger than I am. So there was definitely that. It was right at that time where, she's my shadow for quite a long time.
Now, I used to play cowboys and Indians all the time, okay, in our backyards, and we had the pop guns and we drew them, and we had the bandanas over our face and the cowboy hats, and we just knew that one day we were going to get to see the Old West. Well, I'm here, the bandana's gone, the gun is gone, but you said you had family members that were owners of guns, and they did some shooting. Skeet shooting, trap shooting?
More hunting. I have family that lives in the Midwest. I was born in Chicago, and I have family in Chicago and Minnesota and Wisconsin. So I have family that has a lot of land, and so it was very natural for them to hunt and fish and do things from the land. So I grew up with a very natural presence of feeling it was okay to be around guns, that they had a purpose, and that it wasn't necessarily for killing people, but there was a clear understanding of what they were used for, and that it was okay to have them.
When you were a kid, let's say growing up in Minnesota or being there in Minnesota, I have family there too, and they are hunters. During all seasons of the year. I lived in New York, and there are hunters there too that provide for the winter feedings. How old were you when you got your first game?
I've never actually myself hunted.
Okay. Oh, but you've watched, have you been on hunting parties?
I have. I've just never shot one myself. And it's not because I don't want to, it just the opportunity never presented itself.
Okay.
So
let me ask you this. Where does your training with guns come from?
More out of a sense of curiosity initially, because I'm of the type that I have to know everything about everything. So if I'm involved in something, I want to be very thorough.
Yes.
I'm the person that reads the manuals from cover to cover.
All right,
to understand things.
That's
so
good.
When I got to the age where I could actually handle a gun myself, I wanted to know everything I could about it.
And what age was that?
It was a little bit older, so I was probably about 14 before I actually was handling a gun myself, which to me is a little bit older considering the environment that you grow up in, and knowing that if you raise children with them in the home and more comfortable, that you're less likely to have issues with that.
All right. So would that have been the time when you were in California?
I was already in California at that point.
Now, I know that gun laws differ in various states. So when you were growing up in California and you're 14 years old, how did you, when did you first obtain a gun for yourself?
I probably didn't obtain one for my own self in my own name until I was probably 19 or 20.
Okay.
But I had family that had guns. My mother's boyfriend at the time was a hunter or a shooter. We would go out shooting, whether it was target practice. So there were always guns for me to use when we went out with another adult to be able to use. So at 14, I was able to go out shooting.
And what do you remember being instructed or being told about guns at that age that stayed in your mind?
Probably the biggest factor is don't be afraid to pick it up. If you're afraid to shoot it, don't own it. Don't have it. Mm-hmm. Additionally, don't aim it at something you're not willing to kill.
All right. Now, today, do you think there's a major difference in the feeling for guns or the understanding of guns than there was when you were growing up at the age of 14 or 15 in California? Guns have become an issue in our culture. And I know from living in other cultures, other peoples, other nations tend to look upon the United States as a violent nation. Maybe we are, maybe we're not, compared to other nations. I always have my own opinions on that. But what are the issues today that you see with guns being held by owners, okay? You're perfectly comfortable. I probably am one of those people that should not own a gun because I didn't grow up around them as much as you did. Mm-hmm. They were in our home. My father was a gun owner. But the first time I ever shot at an animal, the kickback was so strong I landed on the ground, and that was the end of my shooting career.
You were done.
I was 12. I was done. I was done. So do you sense a difference in our culture in America today with guns?
Oh, absolutely. I think we've gotten away from a couple things. One of them is people forget that that's where we come from. People hunt and forage. They didn't just kill animals with their hands. They used a weapon. So, yes. And used in the right context, they're perfectly acceptable and normal. The focus has been on that criminals have these guns, and now we have legal citizens that have these guns, and why would you need, an AK rifle, or why would you need a shotgun that can hold, more than one shot? I mean, there's different things about, well, if we let the normal everyday citizen have a gun, well, then they're either going to do something bad or the criminal's going to get it. Well, generally, your people who are legal gun owners aren't the people going around killing others. It's usually the people who have obtained them illegally or by some other means. So I think we've really lost that it's the person doing the action. I could kill you just as easy with a knife or a club or my own hands as I could shooting you with a gun. But I think the focus is on the mechanism they're using to do it as opposed to the person who's perpetrating that crime.
And in addition to what you're saying, I'm following you very carefully because I know that myself, I would consider myself fairly ignorant on gun laws, the use of guns, and the knowledge about guns and the history of guns that I really need to have to make a legitimate decision about their use, carrying a gun, etc. So do you think that the American public is pretty well uninformed or not informed enough to really make some sound decisions on guns in our society?
Unfortunately, I think we have a split. I think you have some of your gun advocates who are very well versed, and that's why they are so proponent of carrying guns and being able to legally own them. And then they have the other side that are in the shock value. Oh my gosh, someone just got shot, or this person or that person pulled a gun on someone, and they immediately go for the result of what happened as opposed to looking at how did they get there.
Yes.
And they really aren't informed. I mean, they think that that's that just happened.
Right. And Debra, that can also be a situation that's based on fear.
Absolutely.
Fear will drive us into a very conservative corner, or fear will drive us to the exact opposite of what is the truth.
Absolutely.
We hide behind those fears rather than discussing and admitting our own ignorance about not only the use of a gun and how it can be used properly, but we just want to deny everybody that weapon, the right to have it. So I know that with the episodes that have happened recently, not only in the Boston Marathon, but in Connecticut with the school shooting, and in Colorado with the theater shooting, okay? What kind of a lasting impact do these situations have on the American public? We seem to go through a news cycle, and then we forget. until the next event happens. Is there something wrong with that?
Absolutely. If we are reactionary instead of proactive, then we get into the situations where we are now. If we were proactive in educating people on who should have guns, how to appropriately use them, what they're used for, we wouldn't have this knee-jerk reaction every time there's an incident. Okay, there's been a shooting. Well, let's take away everybody's guns. And my daughter summed it up really well for a project she was doing at school. She compared gun owners and wanting to ban guns just like drugs. Do they ban the drugs? Is it the drug user? That didn't work. Making them illegal, do we not have drug addicts in this world? We absolutely do. So by saying we're going to take away the guns, we're not going to take away the violence that comes with it, because we haven't fixed the problem at all. So we need to address what the problem is, and it's not the legal gun owners. That's not our issue. But no one wants to dig in and own that. They want to go for the shock value, because I can't get people on an election time to sit down and listen to the real reasons. They just want what's going to go in the press, what's going to hurt people in the heart. Oh, I do remember that. I need to do this. I need to do that.
Right. And I agree with you completely. If I want to become an owner, okay, I have been around guns as a child and have not since being an adult. Now back in my marriage, my husband is a gun owner. And I have said to myself, I really need to become a gun owner and learn how to use it properly, carry it properly. And as he says to me, my husband, don't aim it at anybody or anything unless you intend to kill.
Exactly.
And that's a big concept for me to work with. But it's no different than the concepts that they had to deal with in the formation of our country, in the 1700s and the 1800s, to defend it. So my last question, one of my last questions to you, Debra, is what made you and your husband form a team to teach effective methods for protecting ourselves? How did that come about?
Well, it came about because, first of all, my husband is very passionate from his background, his various background with fire, paramedics, being in law enforcement and seeing time after time what happens in those scenarios, as well as my frustration with women. And I'm a woman, and I'm a staunch woman supporter, but we ignore the things that we shouldn't. We have another sense about us when things aren't going right. We think that someone's going to come save us. And I don't care, even my husband being as strong as he is and as, protective as he is, at the end of the day, I still need to be able to protect myself. He's not there with me 24/7.
That's right.
So I need to make sure I can have ownership of that. And I want to teach that to our children as well. And so we got together and thought, it's not just about guns, it's about teaching people to protect themselves. It's about changing your thought process. It's about using the tools you have. It's not necessarily about owning a gun, because that's a single person's decision, and it has to be a personal one that you're willing to live with.
And that you're comfortable with.
Absolutely. But it needs to be about the tools you have within yourself and here that you can use to protect yourself every single day.
Well, when we come back to the second part of our program, your husband, Jeff May, is going to be with us, and you and he are going to demonstrate some very important aspects of protecting yourself wherever you are, and help us to understand what an active shooter is, what an active shooter scenario is in the second half when we come back. So this is going to be a first for Women to Women, so don't go away.
Hi, I'm Stephen Lincoln with CarsonCityHomes.com, Carson City's original online real estate resource.
At CarsonCityHomes.com, you get effective and easy-to-use tools to help you select your next home today. With our easy-to-use website, you can search listings throughout Northern Nevada and narrow the results by selecting every facet, quirk, and quality you desire. Visit CarsonCityHomes.com.
Come into Villa Basque Deli and Cafe right here in Carson City, Nevada. Discover fine Portuguese extra virgin olive oils, vintage balsamic vinegars, and a wide assortment of international health teas provided by distributor Carpa Nevada LLC. In addition to these terrific items, Villa Basque is also the home of Pete's famous Basque chorizo, handmade on the premises from Pete's secret family recipe. Satisfy your culinary curiosities. Don't delay.
Hi, welcome back again to the second half of our program on Women to Women. We have with us Jeff and Debra May. And Jeff is the CEO of a very special company called Apex. And what we're going to be seeing in the second half in just a few moments are some actual defensive moves that all of us can really learn a great deal from. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsors for the second half. I'd like to thank carsonnow.org, which is the 24/7 place to go on the internet for everything that's happening here in Carson City. And we'd also like to thank the Nevada Appeal and the Record Courier, who always encourage us to support our local businesses. Shop these small businesses and support them whenever you can. And always watch in their Sunday editions for their special book of coupons that can help all of us. So watch for those coupons. Now let's turn to Jeff May and to his wife, Debra. Jeff, I'm going to ask you and Debra to show us and walk us through what is an active shooter scenario. It's something that is probably new vocabulary, but it's something that we need to be aware of as a viewing public. So I'm going to step out of the way, and you just address the audience either on that middle camera, okay, or on the camera over here, what you're going to do.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. Well, active shooter scenario is somebody actively engaging in shooting individuals for any number of reasons. And this is an individual you cannot reason with at all. They're just in there taking lives regardless of the situation and circumstances. So you can't reason with them. So we here at Apex SCF have developed a couple of techniques to take guns away. One we're going to demonstrate here is our signature takeaway. If somebody comes up to you and they're standing in front of you and they're pointing a handgun at you, and that's for two reasons they could be pointing a gun at you. One is they're going to rob you and they want something, or two, they want to take you or move you somewhere, kidnapping scenario, or a hostage situation, take you somewhere and possibly kill you. And for that technique, we actually show you to take the gun away. That's where we say that you need to take a move, do this move to protect yourself because you have that one chance at that moment. The first reason, if they want something, they want to rob you, we give them the items that they ask for. Their purse, the wallet, the money, whatever they're saying. So just give that, don't fight. But if they want to take you somewhere, or if they're confronting you with a gun and pointing right at you, and it's a domestic reason or something, that's obvious. And then for that, we'll show you this, it's our takeaway. And that you have to fight. You have to fight, and you have to fight there and now. So the situation is now you got a gun pointing at you. We assume the gun is loaded. Somebody's not going to bring an unloaded gun and point it at you. Mm-hmm. And so you're in threat of dying if you don't do something to save and protect yourself. 911 is not going to work. You try to call, that's not going to work because you have to do something to protect yourself at this moment. So we stand in there and we listen to the person and see what they're going to tell us.
Can't believe you fired me for no reason. That's my only job, man.
So in that situation, they're not asking for anything. They're not asking for my money. They're not asking. That is a serious situation. There's here pointing a gun at me and loaded, we would assume, and typically after they're done saying what they want to say, they're going to pull the trigger. So what we teach is we put our hands up immediately, and that helps to de-escalate the situation, to show them that we're unarmed. Our hands are empty, number one. Number two is that this is a universal sign as I surrender. Another opportunity to get them to relax their finger off the trigger, to catch them off guard. Now we teach to ask them a question. What happened? How did I get you fired?
You told the boss that I was coming in late.
And what you do is right when they start to answer that question, they start to speak, and then you move. Because the old saying, you can't chew bubblegum and walk at the same time, is kind of true. So as they're forming a sentence structure and they're verbalizing it, and now that you make your move. So at one move, it's all turn the hips, you twist at the hips, and at the same time your hand is right there because you're already in this position. You're on the gun. So if the gun does discharge, the bullet goes off in a safe direction. And you grab the gun, now you step in with the other hand and grab the gun here, and at the same time the gun rotates around and points in a safe direction. Now it's pointing at the suspect, where we'd like it to be pointing. Mm-hmm. So now we teach, you have two options. Option one is you rotate the gun over the top and you pull it away, you take one step back and you cover down on the suspect. And while you're in this position, the other option is an active shooter scenario where they're shooting and they killed a lot of people and they're going to try to kill you. They're going to here to kill you. That we can reach down with our any one of our fingers and depress the trigger. We don't teach that to tell our students that, but we say that's an option for our students. If it were me personally, that I might do that to save my life, because as law enforcement officers, we've been trained if they have one gun, they have another gun. If they have two guns, they have three guns, and on and on and on. So if I were to take the gun away and go cover down on the suspect could pull another gun out, and then it would be a gun-to-gun battle.
All right, Jeff, I can see where women or anybody in a parking lot at night, okay, this could be a scenario that comes up. It could be entrance into a school suddenly, and there's a teacher or a staff member who's right there. And to engage, and like you said, to distract is very important. To calm them down is important. But there comes that moment in time. Now, what I'd like to have you do right now is, this is the real thing. I'd like to see the viewing audience see how quickly, when they know what they're doing, this happens, this takes place.
Now, again, if I can make it very clear, this is not for an active shooter scenario. This is somebody coming up to you face to face, because an active shooter, go ahead and put the gun on me, right there, they'd shot me. The bullets would be exiting the gun. I don't have time to talk or negotiate or wait for them to ask me something. This is for a scenario if they're going to rob you or take you somewhere or kidnap you, in those two scenarios. Active shooter is a little different scenario. So in this case, we'll go ahead and speed it up, what it looks like.
You got me fired. I can't believe you told the boss that I was late. You got me fired.
I'm sorry. How did I get you fired?
You kept telling the boss I was late.
You see how quickly that took place. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Debra. Okay, let's imagine a different type of scenario, Jeff. I've taken your class, but you've also updated it since I was in your class. And can you help our viewing audience know what you've added to the program that wasn't there, very briefly?
Well, we've added, since the Boston bombings, we've added some content regarding explosives, explosive devices, and suspicious packages. What do you do if you notice something out there and you don't know exactly what to do, but you have an idea it could be something dangerous, explosive device? Or you see somebody putting something down and walking away from it. Or you get an item in the mail, what to look for, and how does it present itself as a package, and the identifying factors on the outside of it, weight, smell, colors, and all these factors we built. So we added some new content to our program regarding explosive devices and possible bombs.
Also, parking lot safety.
Yes, yes.
That was a huge one, because as we've gone through classes, and some of the scenarios we get asked time and time again is, I'm going to a parking lot at night, what do I do? What should I be doing to protect myself? So we've included some scenarios on parking lot safety, just normal basics on how to protect yourself.
Okay, I know that we're going to have Debra come back on a program with Women to Women to be a little bit more specific. Can you give us one more move that, because we're limited with time, that you think is very important for the public to watch and become aware of, and why? Can you think of another scenario, whether it's in a building, whether it's on campus, whether it's in a domestic dispute, or help us to understand what is a training method, what is an action that could save our lives and the lives of other people?
Okay, another scenario we go through is we have many encounters in our lives, and it starts to escalate, a lower force of escalation, verbal. And how to identify a possible threat before it becomes physical. And let's say Deb is an assailant, a possible suspect is going to hurt me, and it usually starts verbal. Like, let's say we're in a grocery store and we accidentally bump into each other, and this person, that's all they needed at that moment to now snap, to take all their angers out on me and see me as the focus of their problems. And now it starts out verbally. And I would say, excuse me, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bump into you. And that person would usually respond outside of that, something to where they would escalate. And we teach then, if you notice that is take a step back and get ready for a possible fight, for a hands-on confrontation. Put your hands up like this. Now say firmly, a little louder, no, excuse me, I didn't mean to bump into you, I'm sorry. And if they now keep escalating it and trying to approach me and become more physical, you now take another step back and put your hands up and now get louder and give them direct commands and direct orders. You are making me feel uncomfortable. Please step back. Now I said I'm sorry. Now leave me alone. And now what that does is it causes a ruckus and other people around you to notice there's a possible problem and to come to your aid. And this person, as a possible suspect, criminal, they don't like to be noticed by others. And so also when you take a stance back, we teach our students, take a stance back and put your hands up like that. That also shows that possible criminal that maybe this person could be former or current law enforcement, martial arts, or military, or have some type of training that's above their training. And they're not ready for that. And that's not usually what they encounter when they bully and try to inflict injury on others as a victim.
And you know, as we're watching these demonstrations and listening to Jeff and listening to Debra, we're going to be putting up on the screen contact numbers, contact information, that if you're interested and you want to know more about these programs and where they can train, where they can go for teaching demonstrations like I did, they'll have that information that comes up. So, Jeff, why do you think that the American public is rather lax about staying up on safety? Corporations, schools, the police are usually, you know, they're really working hard with the public to get this information across. But we as a people, we as a nation, tend to step back and say, well, it's not going to happen to me. Somebody else is going to take care of the situation. And that's not the truth anymore.
It hasn't been the truth for quite some time, but just Americans they want to believe it's absolutely a safe country and it's a safe place to live and raise their children. And no matter what happens, even when it's their next door neighbor that's been a victim, they still close their doors at night thinking their environment, their home is a safe haven from the outside world. And we teach it's not. We teach it's okay to be on a little of an edge, and it's okay to be ready and prepared for the unseen. And when it comes around the corner, you won't be surprised. You'll be ready for it, and you'll take appropriate actions to save your life.
All right. And Debra, let me ask you this final question. How has this training made a difference? Because we know that you grew up, have a familiarity with guns, and yet still this training of the public, how has it changed you as a woman?
I think it's changed me in the fact that I've always been very self-assured and I have always been independent. So I think it's been able to, as we've given these classes and meet the women and the men who come to the classes and hearing their fears and hearing that, well, if I look at that guy like that and I turn around and walk away, he's going to think, you know, I'm being rude and he might come after me. It really makes me realize that we have to teach people it is okay to put your safety first, remove yourself from a situation. I feel it's my job, especially for women, to teach them to listen to your gut. Women have the best intuitive skills about situations coming, people who they're uncomfortable with, and it is absolutely okay to remove yourself from their presence.
And in addition to that, everything you say I agree with completely. And Jeff brought up that, and I believe you did too earlier, Debra, that historically they always taught their children how to use a rifle. They taught their children, you know, to be on the lookout because things were dangerous 200 years ago, 150 years ago. And really, in the evolvement of our society, the danger has always been there. It can be imminent, it can be right up front, it can be lurking, it can come at you from instantaneous impact. So I thank you very much for what you have done and taken the time. And I would encourage all of us out there as the viewing audience to think about preparing yourself, preparing your family, preparing your environment for the latest techniques in corporate safety, campus safety, home safety, personal safety. It's something that we need to take the responsibility and take the bull by the horn, so to speak, and let's do it, okay? Because we don't have to walk around in fear. We don't have to feel incompetent. We don't have to feel that we lack knowledge. So I want to say thank you so much, Jeff, for being here. And thank you so much, Debra, for being with us. And we'll be back next week with a brand new program. But in the meantime, this has been Food for Thought. It's a first for Women to Women, and we're extremely proud to be able to bring this to you. So have a good evening out there. Take care, and we'll see you next week.